Hey Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. On this episode of Playas Guide, I am going to be covering games that I played in 2019. For the most part, these are going to be games that I enjoyed and I thought were worth mentioning. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in this video. Now, some of these games were not released in 2019. Some of them were, and I'm going to start off with the games that weren't released in 2019. Now, these games were part of the PlayStation Plus subscription. They came as the free monthly games. So the first game is Detroit, Becoming Human. This was a free PS Plus subscription game. I'm a big fan of games like Until Dawn and Between Two Souls, and this game is very similar to those games. Now, I didn't think I'd really like games of this style at first because of how story-driven they are and how, uninvolved you are in terms of, reflex and gameplay. For the most part, you just walk around with the characters, interact with certain other characters, and the game tells you a story. In the story, you make decisions that will affect your outcome. Now, the story for Detroit is that this is a not so distant future in the city of Detroit where most people have androids who will assist them with different jobs and daily tasks. Now, people are getting upset that androids are taking their jobs and things like that because the androids are becoming more sophisticated. And as this sophisticated technology develops, these androids become more human. Some of them even think that they're human. So without going too much into detail and spoiling anything for you in case you want to play this game, it follows three characters, and all three characters somehow become intertwined in one way or another. You decide by making a choose your own adventure style series of choices that establish various endings to the game. I did try to get a few different endings, but I was not successful at getting the good ending for all three characters, and this was because some of the choices that you make are good or bad choices, and I usually chose to make good choices and help people throughout the game. However, that's not always going to be the correct choice to benefit your character in the end. So Detroit Becoming Human, worth checking out if you're looking for a laid-back game that you don't have to get too involved in. I was eating a bowl of popcorn while I was playing this game. A lot of retro games, you can't really do that. Your hands are on the controller. Same with a lot of online games. So this one is really good for when you just want to chill out. The next game was also a PS Plus subscription game, Horizon Chase. And this game is a real throwback if you're a fan of Outrun or Road Blasters or Rad Racer. And playing this game, I really got into it, and it's great because if you don't have a lot of time to really immerse yourself in a big story-driven game, you can just pick this game up, have a quick race or two. And it got me playing some of those older games that I had mentioned. So if you're a fan of late 80s, early 90s arcade-style racers, you're going to love this game. It's for you. And, I'm playing through the entire game now trying to get first place gold or better. Yeah, you could get better in every stage. This next game was released last year on the Switch, but not on the PS4. It was just released in the late spring, early summer on the PS4, and that's where I played it. It's The Messenger. Now, the developers who made this game also came out with some DLC for The Messenger that was free to download and play this past summer, so it may have drawn some more people back into the game who hadn't played it for a while since it came out on the Switch. And that DLC is called the Summer Picnic Panic. It's a smaller map with, I think it's 3 stages. It's a pretty good amount of gameplay. I think I played through it in 3 hours, maybe a little bit longer. So, it's a nice little extra. Maybe they'll do some more of this DLC or some add-ons to keep us coming back to the Messenger and playing it. This game is really cool. It's a total throwback game, so if you're a retro gamer, you're gonna love it. It has a few different mechanics. One of which, the most notable, is where you transport yourself through portals, and it switches you between 8-bit and 16-bit graphics. Now, when doing this, it will also change the layout of the screen, sometimes exposing hidden areas or allowing you to do or perform certain tasks that you can't in one of the other modes, either the 16 or the 8-bit style. It might even be the 16-bit is almost a little bit 32-bit-ish. But it's a modern game, so you know the resolution on it is great, and it is along the lines of Ninja Gaiden. Some of the scenes you can tell where you're climbing up the mountain definitely pay tribute to Ninja Gaiden, and you just, you know, it's got that nice flow where you're jumping, double jumping, slashing, throwing ninja stars. You got a grappling hook that allows you to cling to walls. So yeah, it's a great retro style ninja game. Another game that did not come out in 2019 that I did get and played in 2019 is No Man's Sky. Now, this is a space exploration game, and the levels are randomly generated. However, I find that most planets you land on, after doing some exploration, you find some mineral or item or a piece of technology either buried maybe in a cave or just kind of far from where you land your ship, or somehow you find some piece that benefits you and is worth searching for before you take off again in your ship. Now, I haven't put a ton of time into this game, but this is another one that is so relaxing to play. You can just kick back and play it at any time. It is an online multiplayer, but I've never run into anybody in the game while exploring the planets. So, you know, it does have that option, but there are set levels where you can prefer to run into people or prefer not to. And mine is just neutral. But yeah, you don't see people too often in the game. Now, the reason I picked this up was because this game is getting a lot harder to find, and I did want to play it before. And the price went down, but then the availability also went down when a new DLC came out that allowed VR and also worked out a ton of bugs and new updates to the game. Siberian is a fun, cheap indie game that I picked up that was released in 2019. Now, this game only has 3 levels, but they are somewhat difficult, so you will have to put some time into it. I did platinum the game, however, the final boss I couldn't beat. He's very difficult. I'm not even sure if he's beatable. I'm sure there's someone out there who has, but I couldn't beat that last boss. So the game has you slashing your way through levels and doing this rolling dodge to avoid enemy attacks. It's a definite throwback game, and I'm really into that style of games. The game was fairly cheap, so you really can't go wrong if you're able to pick this one up fairly cheap. So 1980X is a fairly recent indie game that came out in the summer of 2019. This game is a real throwback, nostalgia-driven game. It has some like synthwave, retro wave music, so if you're into that, you're gonna dig this game, and if you're into retro games, you're probably gonna like this one. It has a narrative that sort of reminds me of like mid-80s John Hughes film to it, and it's got some really cool music. Now, we don't get the complete story. It does leave you hanging, but there are 5 different mini games in it. Each game is basically one stage on an arcade game, from an arcade that you visit in the game. And so there is a dungeon crawler, there is a ninja game, there's a shoot 'em up, there is a beat 'em up, and there's a really cool racing game that I enjoyed playing a lot. So if you make it through the first stage of all these games, then you beat the game. But like I said, it says to be continued, so maybe there will be some expansion on this game. If you've been watching Playas Guide live streams, then you might remember back in March of 2019, I did Mortal Kombat March, where I played through all of the different Mortal Kombat games leading up to Mortal Kombat 11. So Mortal Kombat 11 is on this list, even though it doesn't really have anything to do with retro, like a few of these other games like Detroit. But it does in the sense that the series goes back so far in gaming, and I'm such a big fan of all the different stages building up to this new game. And by the way, this new game is one of the better Mortal Kombat games. It's really cool. The fatalities are just like the goriest they've ever been, and just such unrealistic brutality and violence, that some parts are a little bit, sadistic, but also humorous in a way. The graphics are great. The gameplay is a little bit different than Mortal Kombat 10. So if you liked MKX, you'll probably still like this one. But it does seem to play a little bit more like Injustice 2. Not that there's a huge difference between these games, but if you're a picky gamer when it comes to fighting games, you will notice these differences. But there's a lot to this game. Like the downloads and stuff seem to be like unlimited. So I know it drives a little bit people who are obsessed with collecting everything. They're not such a big fan of the microtransactions where you can buy or earn in-game currency to get all these different skins and stuff, which are updated daily. Overall, I would say Mortal Kombat 11 is a great fighting game, and the fighting game I played the most of in 2019. Contra Rogue Core is the other modern game that I picked up day one, and that's for the same reason that I picked up Mortal Kombat 11 day one. This is a franchise that I have all the games for, and it spans all the way back to the NES, and I have a lot of nostalgia for Contra and Super C, which is one of my favorite games on the NES. And, how could I not buy it? They keep releasing these games no matter how good or bad they are. I'm going to keep buying into that franchise. This game I didn't think was that bad. Initially, the reviews were terrible. I was seeing like 2-star reviews. So when I did go to play it, I enjoyed it quite a bit because my expectations were so low that I was expecting just hot garbage, which it wasn't. It was a decent game, but there were some things that turned me off, such as the lack of a pause button. Now, since then, the game has dropped like more than half of the price it was when it launched. There's also been an update which offers a pause now, and they fixed a few little things here and there in the game. So it is a better game than it was, but it's not the side-scrolling Contra that many of us enjoyed during the 16-bit and 8-bit eras. If you're looking for that, go play Blazing Chrome. So those are the games that I played in 2019, and I enjoyed them all for the most part. I played some other games, but these were the ones that were noteworthy. Let me know in the comments below how you felt towards some of these games, if you like them or not, and what franchises you're a fan of, because maybe there will be some new games. There seems to be a lot of remakes coming out in 2020. That's it for this episode of Playas Guide. All the best in 2020. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Later, Playas.